Hello, everybody. We are live on Instagram. And I hope that this is something, we'll spend some time here. I think this is going to be something that you guys will enjoy today. Something a little bit different, something I thought might be fun to do while we continue to stay home. And so we're going to, well, I'm going to say a couple of things, and then we're going to get on with Felix Holst. If you don't know who Felix is, a lot of you do. If you don't, you're going to get to know who he is now here in a little bit. So this will be really, really cool. But just a couple of things. I'm getting a ton of questions. And I know Lean Customs is about the sale tomorrow, which drops at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for the Lean and Lamley Pinup Gasser Pin, which is being bundled on the Lamley site with a special limited edition hoodie and t-shirt. All of the details on how to get them and where to go and everything else will be placed on the Lamley blog tomorrow, lamleygroup.com, and then I will I'll link to Instagram for those of you on Instagram where you can get all the details. There's going to be, the store will activate right at the time that the sale goes down, and there's some limitations on what you can and can't buy, meaning one per if you can get through. And here's the deal. I have gotten so many inquiries about the hoodie, and the hoodie is, I just got it in person. We're making these to order, but Anna, I met up with Anna, and she delivered the hoodie today. I'm going to pull this up a little bit. And it's something really special. It's really, really cool. Nice quality brown ink for this. And I just feel like once this is seen, demand's going to go even higher. So I'm actually going to double the amount of hoodies from 25 to 50. 50 hoodies available tomorrow. And I'll make all of that known tomorrow in the blog post. So more details, just send me a message or something like that, and I'll be happy to answer them for you if I can, but all of that will come out tomorrow. Okay, let's talk to Felix. Let's see if he's on here. Let's see here. I'm gonna search. I don't see him yet. Let's see here. Felix, if you are on, just make a comment, say hello, wave or something, and I can go off of that to bring you in. Knocking cars around. But yeah, I can introduce Felix. Hopefully this will work. And if it doesn't. We're live. It's okay. We'll make it work. But I'm looking for you, Felix. So Felix, and I'll let him do most of the introducing. I can look at some of your questions now while we're waiting, and I'll keep checking to see if Felix pops in. He said this was new to him too, so if one of you wants to message him or something like that, you can say, hey man, just pop on. I'm looking. Yeah, he's not on yet, so we'll figure that out. All right, let me look at some questions here. How big will the hoodies be? 2XL will be available. I heard they go up to like 5XL. So the hoodies can actually go a little bit bigger than the t-shirts can, and all of that will be laid out. How about those 2020 new models on HWC? Looking good. See that orange track? I haven't even had a chance today. I've been so busy to even look at them, but I did see some people message me about a couple of them, so I'll look later. Any mini GT content? Yeah, I'll work on that stuff. I got some new stuff, and then I'll be showing that on the video as well. And again, Felix, if you're on, just say hello or something. I'm going to try and find you here. There he is. Okay. I'm going to make this happen. So we'll answer questions later, but let's see if Felix is connecting right now. There he is.
Hey,
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry about that. I was trying to figure it all out, man.
No problem. I'm right here too. I know that I have a face. And it's cool to talk to you, man. I don't think we've talked. I mean, if we ever talked, it was for a brief hello, how are you, in like Albuquerque or something like that way back when. So I think it's been years that we've even said hello.
Easily. God, I can't even think, man. 10 years?
Yeah.
Easily.
Long time.
It's
well,
all...
and we could probably figure it out if we talk your history a little bit. And that's what I think we'll do.
You've got a lot of I'm in the garage. This is where I live. And unfortunately, I've got a lot of background light going on. So it's all going to be a bit atmospheric tonight.
That's okay. All right. That's okay. We've got what's going on, I think. So, so let's do this. So this is really like so everyone knows this is very casual. I've gotten a lot of requests to talk to different people, and I thought talking to you would be very interesting. We'll just talk. I'll let you introduce yourself. This is casual. We'll see where this goes. We've got a lot of Matchbox and Hot Wheels history with you, and so I'm going to start. I'm going to let you kind of, Felix, tell everyone who you are and why Lamley would be talking to you. I mean, I could tell you why, but you go for it. You start with your history a little bit.
All right. So I'm Felix Holst. I guess to be honest, I kind of my era with Mattel as a whole was pre-social media, really. Yeah. And so as a result, I'm kind of I feel. And I've kind of played into this a lot. I feel that I'm a little bit of a kind of unknown, a bit of an enigma, which I'm happy to be.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm from the UK. I started my career with Mattel in '96, just as Mattel bought not just Matchbox but Corgi.
Yeah.
And I started my career in the toy industry. I was on my way to be a car designer at the RCA, but I took a little temp job in an office in Leicester in the UK, which had been the Corgi office. I took a 6-month temp job for what was then being called Hot Wheels UK, because literally months before, Mattel had bought Corgi.
Yeah.
They'd bought Matchbox in New Jersey. And they and the little Corgi team needed some help. They needed some extra hands, and because they've been tasked with doing a whole bunch of stuff for Hot Wheels as well, yeah. and for Matchbox. And just before I joined, Corgi was sold back to the Corgi management as a collector brand with like a non-compete. They couldn't do toy, but they could do collector.
Right.
And within a few weeks, from me turning up I'm from Newcastle, Northeast England, Geordie. Within a few weeks, I'd done a week in Milan at the Mattel plant, and I'd done 2 weeks in California at El Segundo headquarters.
Yeah.
And so I was in love with it, but also it turned out that I was just naturally very good at toy design, specifically toy design, but I could draw cars as well as anybody else.
Yeah.
And so that was the start of what became a kind of on and off 20-year career, which resulted in me moving to California and gradually working my way up from being like design manager on Matchbox to director of Matchbox. And then from that, with the job I did on Matchbox, I moved up to be like senior director of Matchbox RC, like Tyco, and some Hot Wheels stuff. And then eventually became vice president of, first of all, vice president of design for the Wheels division, Hot Wheels and Matchbox.
With both brands at the time, right?
Yeah. And then eventually vice president of like creative. So and we'll come to that later, I was dealing with not just the product design, but also the entertainment stuff, all of the Hot Wheels for real stunts.
Yeah.
I was guiding the licensing, like anything creative to do with the Wheels division was where I ended, which was like 5 years.
So you say you might, because we're in the social media era now, like you might be relatively unknown, but you're actually well known in terms of your fingerprints are all over so many products. And in fact, I'm going to turn this around, my camera around. Here's one of the most popular models on the planet right now among Hot Wheels collectors. This is the first edition of Brendan Vitesse's, 55 Bel Air Gasser. And if you start looking to the back, Holst Auto Service is sitting right there on the back of the car. So it's there. They've seen your name a lot. Not that we have to, not that anyone has to be reminded, but
and that's it. That's a real tribute. Yeah, the fact that Brendan was happy to put my name on the back of his, like, and anybody who knows Brendan knows he's actually building that car right now, like, for real.
Yes.
Brendan
Yeah.
is a brilliant mind, brilliant builder. Like,
Yeah.
builds apps, anything he turns his hand to is supreme, and he does most of it himself. So, you know, those are the little things that make me proud of the team that I built.
Yeah.
Which started in the Matchbox days and then went through to Hot Wheels. And the
Yeah.
fact that the guys are willing to put my name on there, like, I think was that the first edition, or it was
Yeah.
one of
That's the first edition. Yep.
that you know, I'm still proud of that. Very, very proud. I love all those guys, and I'm still very much in touch with them all on a if it's not daily, on a weekly basis.
Well, I mentioned I put the post up that I was going to talk to you, and I've heard from quite a few of them say, "Hey, that's awesome. We love Felix." And so it's so obviously you do talk to them quite a bit still, and you have your hands in a lot of things. And we've shown the gas. We can get to Hot Wheels in a little bit. One of the things that I thought might be really fun, I cut my teeth as a collector, so to speak, mainly on Matchbox. When I kind of got back into collecting, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, it was Matchbox that really, really pulled me in. And as I was getting to know people, and, like you talk about social media now, back then it was chat rooms and forums and things like that. So I got myself really involved in here, I'll turn around for a second, but I got myself really involved in I'm too close, MCCH and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I started hearing your name, and I started going to the Matchbox gatherings, and that's where I got to know a lot of Mattel guys. It's kind of blossomed to whatever it's blossomed into. But so many of the cars from that era, and we can just nerd out for a minute if you'd like. I'd like to.
Yeah.
And I know there's people here that want to do it. I kind of dubbed it when I was writing about it, Matchbox from like 2005 to, I don't know, 2010, 11, or something like that. It's kind of like the newer golden age of Matchbox. There was a lot of realism, a wide variety of cars, and from all kinds of different, we see a lot of that stuff coming from Hot Wheels now. Matchbox is doing it too, but like back then there were some cars that I wasn't even familiar with that were coming out from different continents. But I'm going to turn around back again to I pulled out a few, and we can talk about some other ones, but that I thought were kind of unique to that time. And I know that you had your hand in these, whether you were actually designing them or working on them as a director or something like that. But you can see, I'll move these Hot Wheels out of the way for a second. But I pulled out Austin minivan. A lot of these came from like around 2007. Cadillac hearse, and I know that one's got an interesting story with you. The ambulance, which was subsequent. Let's start with the hearse. Because we just have to. Because I think of you when I think of this model. First off, it was just such a shock when all of a sudden Matchbox dropped. Was this a 63, I think? Something like that, a 63 hearse.
63 millimeter. Well, it's not a millimeter. It's a kind of generic version of a millimeter.
Got it.
Trying to find those coach builders and get a license was a nightmare. But yeah. So
a tribute as such. Yeah. So tell this story, and I'll just put this right here.
So I'll keep it short because I could wax lyrical for hours. So in about 2000, I want to say 2000, well, probably it started in about 2005, the story. The Matchbox, the line that we inherited, excuse me, the line that we inherited from Mount Laurel, from the Hero City days, had a very, very well-selling haunted house playset. And the Mount Laurel guys had used a Holden van as a hearse. They'd done a deco on it that was basically black and purple with a weird little Landau bar kind of deal on the side, and they were pretending it was a hearse. And we lost the license for Holden. Mattel were not. Mattel weren't willing at the time for the size of the brand to renew the license, and we decided to design a generic hearse at first because we had to replace the casting.
Yeah.
And I had the guys put up a board of hearses. I was like, right, guys, just go and do hearse research. Find out classic. We knew the 59 Cadillac was the absolute like epitome of hearses, but let's get the board up and let's figure it out, and let's do a generic hearse. Well, I'd always been a bit of a weird freak for hearses. I'd always wanted one. I was in a rock and roll band for a few years in the UK, and I wanted a hearse to drive the band around in. But the guitar said, if you get a hearse, I'm leaving the band. Because some people are weird about hearses. Yeah. But I'd always wanted one, and I'd always loved, like, Ecto 1 was just one of the most influential things in my life as a kid. And so seeing this board in the design center full of images of 50s and 60s hearses turned me back onto hearses. And I was like, oh, I really want... I was, at the time, I'd been in America for like about 18 months, I think. And I hadn't bought any. I like an Audi RS6 as my daily. And I was looking for a hot rod project. And I was toying with all this different stuff. And then seeing this board, I was like, I'm going to buy a hearse. I've always wanted one. And so I got on eBay and I looked up hearses, and I found this 63mm hearse that was for sale, and it already had airbags and big 22s and 24s on it. It was killer. Yeah. And so, to cut a long story short, I bought the thing. It was in Tennessee, and it got shipped in like November of 2000. It must have been 2006, I think, maybe 2005. Right. And so we were still working on this, and the guys were doing all these designs for a generic hearse, and they were looking at 59 Cadillacs. And I was like, and it literally, this thing got delivered on like a dark, wet November night into the park. Yeah. Looked like it had been dragged out the crypt. It was filthy. It had driven across America on the back of a transporter. Yeah. And I came in the morning after having received it the night before, and I said to the team, I was like, there's no point in us doing a 59 when we've got a 63 in the parking lot. Yeah. Let's do a 63. I just bought the research material. And so that was the basis for that hearse. And a couple of interesting things on it. It's lower than normal because mine was on backs, so it does sit lower. Yeah. Rio Asada was the guy who designed it.
Who's at Hot Wheels now.
Who's at Hot Wheels now, but Rio I consider one of the very, very great Matchbox designers of all time. And was Matchbox for a long time before he got to Hot Wheels. Yeah. And he was responsible. We always liked to do a bit of whimsy. Back then, we were still designing for kids, for sure. Yeah. And so the coffin with the hand coming out the back was... My attitude towards design was always, don't leave anything bare. If it's plastic, it's free fun as long as you can just do a sketch and tell the model maker to add it in there. Right. You know, there's a molded engine under the hood, and there's a coffin with a...
I'm trying to get anyway. I don't think I can do it, but there is, for those who haven't taken this hearse apart, there is a hand coming out of the coffin.
Let me see.
I've seen it. Trying to...
Jim Gallegos was so happy. So this is the one I never had. Hang on a minute. I've got to try and get it in front of you. Yeah. So there's mine.
Oh, look at that.
And I will take the rubber band off. This is the ultimate, like, Diecast liberation from experiment. Let me see if I can pull it apart. Okay. Hang on a minute. I'm doing it live in front of the camera. I'm not very good at this stuff. There you go. It's in bits.
Hey, you're doing great.
There you go.
There it is.
There's the coffin, and there's the little bit of engine. There's an air cleaner under there. There's the coffin with the hand.
And the hand coming out.
Yeah,
it's there. Yeah, so on this one, it's in there. It's just you gotta take it apart and to see it.
I think that was one of my. If it was a legacy, and I still get guys today who are now they're design managers and directors telling me that they still live by it. Was my attitude towards design, toy design. Yeah. Was I don't want to see any flat bits of plastic. I don't want to see any shitty, like glossy, flat bits of plastic with sink marks on them. Right. If there's a bit of plastic, put some detail on it. Whether it's or whether it's exhausts or whether it's a rat or a crab or some weird thing that you want to... Like, it's all about discovery. While we love these cars because we love cars, right? They're still toys. And you've got to, for all those kids, the thing that gets kids into them is the fact that there's more depth than just a kind of a piece of plastic and metal, you know?
And that, I mean, we could fast forward real quickly, like we'll just jump forward. That's indicative of one of your later castings at Hot Wheels. the VW, all of a sudden, you know, there's a skateboard sitting in the back of that thing.
Yeah, that
And,
was one that I actually designed. I designed that. That was.
I think I remember you telling me that this is your actual design, right?
Yeah, that was one of the last ones. I only, to be perfectly frank, in terms of complete 1/64th designs, I only ever designed 3, because I was in leadership from so early on, and I covered so many different parts of the brand that in terms of me sitting down and drawing something, I only designed 3 cars, 3 1/64th.
What are they? This
2
guy,
showrooms.
the Caddy.
Here we go. Look, I brought my little collection. I haven't got much left, but
and I'm glad you got those, because I have some of those, but they're in my storage and I can't get to it right now.
There you go.
So
that's my original 3D printed prototype Fangula. Probably shouldn't be showing this stuff. I'm sure I shouldn't have it, but I don't.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine. Well, what do I know?
Astro Funk, which was the second one. At the time, I was going through a real kind of heritage show rod thing, and nobody else was doing it, so I decided to do it because I love that stuff.
Yeah. Very Ed Rothy of you too.
Yeah, and then I don't have my Caddy, but the Caddy was the last one I did. I've always been a VAG guy.
Yeah.
I've always loved the Caddy, and there was a drift Caddy in Speed Hunters that inspired that at the time.
Well, I love this one. I love how it sits. I love flares on it, everything else. Now, going back to the hearse, and I don't know how much because I heard all kinds of rumors, and I never knew. And if you want to talk about it, you can. If you don't, I'll just ask you. Did the hearse run into some problems?
Yeah.
In terms of keeping it like releasing it and keeping it in stores and things like that?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, it was all down to grease, basically. Sorry,
really?
Grease. Yeah. The story. So the story goes: we launched it. It was incredibly popular with collectors. You
I remember people. You could not find it in stores. It was
you couldn't find it anywhere. In the UK, in the US, you couldn't find the thing. We got into a bit of trouble. I'm just trying to see if I can even show you. I've got my phone out to show you a photo of the real car.
Got it. Oh yeah, do.
See if you can see that. There you go. That's the real car.
Do you still have it?
No, ironically, I live in Venice Beach, California, where parking is notoriously difficult.
Yeah.
And the thing was 23 feet long, and I lived with it in Venice Beach for like 6 years, and eventually sold it because I couldn't. I had nowhere to work on it. Yeah. And 6 months after I sold it, I bought a great big house up the hill from Venice where I had loads of room to work on it. But maybe if I hadn't sold it, I wouldn't have bought the house. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
So the story goes that we got a call from the Greek Mattel affiliate, and they'd had a complaint from the Greek Orthodox Church that basically said that, you know, we were blasphemous by having a hearse in the toy line. How dare we?
Really?
And the Greek affiliate, the Mattel Greece said, we're not going to carry Matchbox anymore if you don't drop that from the line. And Greece was actually I think Greece was quite a big market for it. So
yeah.
The hearse was gone. It became an ambulance very briefly, as you can see. You've got it.
Yeah, I brought that out.
Yeah, which was that's a bitch in casting as well. I mean, that's like such a rad casting.
Oh, it is. And this one, you just took the hearse and just converted it into an ambulance. And then I can't remember. Maybe this was when you're over wheels or not. But we've seen the hearse come back. We haven't seen it a ton, but it has made its return.
Well, that's cool.
I don't know if grease settled down or anything like that, but we have seen it here and there pop up.
Well, that's good to know. It never came back while I was there.
Okay.
Maybe it came back in the one of the super fast collector lines. Maybe
it did. And let me see. I think I might have it here. Hold on. I pulled out a bunch of stuff here. Yeah, I don't remember if we've seen it since then. Oh, I think we have, but there's that.
Yeah.
It has the Diecast chassis too, so.
I don't think I've even got that one, to be honest, but that's right.
Well, I bet there's someone out there. You can't have mine. I only have one, so I'm sorry. But, someone might have an extra they can send you. I also I remember back in the day, like that was one model that I always associated with you. And am I right in saying that this was the other one, the Audi RS6? and which has had kind of, I don't know if you've had, it's kind of had a little bit of a funny twist in the last year or two, but with Audi, I don't know if you're familiar with what happened there, but talk about that one, the Audi RS6. This is one of my all-timers. I love this casting.
So yeah, before I moved out, so I took time off. At the end of '99, I left Mattel. I was in a band. We did very well, but we never really did well enough to keep going.
Yeah.
And then I moved back, and in that time, I was hanging out with a whole bunch of odd characters, and that was the time when the RS6 appeared. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have seen Layer Cake, and the RS6 was just such a badass car. Like,
yeah.
And in Europe, we're into wagons, right? Estate cars. Like,
yeah,
not so much here. So it was just one of my all-time favorite cars. There was something about a twin turbo V8 Audi 4-wheel drive wagon that could destroy Ferraris, but was fairly understated. It just hit all the right buttons for me.
Yeah.
I moved to the States. I didn't earn enough to buy an RS6. I moved here in 2004. The RS6 came out here in 2003, and it was like an $85,000 car in 2004. But also, they didn't bring the wagon in, so you couldn't get a wagon in the US.
Yeah.
And I bought a car that wasn't very common in the UK. It was an Audi RS6 4.2 sedan.
Yeah.
That was my daily driver when I was with Matchbox. And the reason I had that car was it had the wide body. It had the same arches as the RS6, and it was still a fast car. It was a nice car. But when we came to kind of reinventing the line, that was really one of my first, and probably, if I'm my only, like little kind of greedy little, we're going to do this moments, was that we needed to do some German performance cars, and we were trying very hard not to do anything that Hot Wheels would have done. And so I was crafting this. We were doing a lot of trucks and a lot of utility vehicles and fire engines and stuff, and trying to craft this, like, we still wanted to do cool performance cars, but not the stuff that Hot Wheels was doing.
Right.
And so the first thing that popped into my head was the RS6 wagon, which was still at the time just at the end of its first run, and it was one of my little kind of mandates. And I didn't make any mandates in my time with the Wheels division, but one of my little mandates was I want to do the RS6 because it's the bitchinest car in the world.
Yeah.
Hot Wheels are never going to do it, so let's do the RS6. Later on, once I'd moved up to VP of design for the whole division, instead of buying a new car, I bought myself an RS6. It wasn't a wagon, but it was an RS6 sedan that was mildly tuned, and that was my daily driver for like six or 7 years. It was like the best car I've ever owned. It was phenomenal. But that's the story. That RS6 was done because I loved RS. I mean, at the end of the day, it was done because I love RS6s.
I love that. And what's funny about that too, and this is when I was first getting into collecting, I lived in Brazil in the mid 90s, and I wasn't collecting at the time, but I remember walking into an Audi dealership in Curitiba, Brazil, and seeing these Audi wagons that I'd never seen before. And I was like, this is the coolest car I have ever seen. And I just remember going, and I didn't know enough, and I was like, well, when I get back to the States, I'm going to look into this car, and I couldn't get it, and then when Matchbox dropped this one, I was like, yeah, I mean, you were doing Porsches and you have Bentleys and all that kind of stuff, but I was like, wow, an Audi wagon like the one I saw in Brazil, this is as cool as it is. And to me, like, that's what really kind of got me going on Matchbox at the time. You mentioned, while you're talking about that, reinventing the line. What were you guys doing at the time? Like, what was because you did, and what was the strategy there? Because you really did move into kind of at least this is my perception as a collector, kind of, variety of cars, realism, that sort of thing. Like, what was the direction there? What were you guys trying to do?
I think there was a few factors, right? There was the fact. So when I was employed by Mattel to move out to the States, I was employed to be the design manager for Hot Wheels Collector.
Yeah.
Hot Wheels, which was the best job I could have bought. I mean, I was like, holy shit, even I'm just going to move to California and do nothing but, like,
Look at cars.
research wheels and do
Yeah.
cool. But they realized, like, just before I moved, they decided to shut the Mount Laurel plant down.
Yeah.
And I was literally the only guy on staff. I wasn't even on staff. I mean, I was employed, but I was still stuck in the UK for visa reasons.
Yeah.
But I was the only guy who had ever worked on both Matchbox and Hot Wheels. And I was just young. I mean, I was fairly junior. This was my first management. And so they shipped me off to New Jersey, where I had 6 weeks in New Jersey to get to grips with the line, choose who really helped choose who was going to move across to California, and understand what we were going to do. And so then very quickly I had to put a strategy together of how would we differentiate not only differentiate Matchbox from Hot Wheels under the same roof for the first time ever, like the physical roof,
right?
But also how were we going to turn the line around, because the line was in the pan when we first turned up in Mount Laurel, in El Segundo, to present the line, which was the Mount Laurel line, which was the Hero City line.
Yeah.
We were laughed off the stage. I mean, the sales team, the global sales team, was just like literally shouting out from the audience, "Why don't you give up? Kill it. We don't need it. Like, just do Hot Wheels." And to give Matt Bousquet, who was president of brands at the time, to give him a little bit of credit, he stood up. He wasn't always the easiest guy to deal with, but he stood up in front of them all and told them to shut up and give us a chance. And it was an important brand. But me and the then marketing guy, John Coyne, we were very close for a couple of years. And really, I've got to say that me and John Coyne, I don't know whether I would have done everything I did if it wasn't for John Coyne. Yeah. Because we were both British kids who'd grown up with Matchbox in the golden age of, like, beautifully illustrated boxes, and we understood it. Like, we just understood the roots of the brand, and we listened to the collectors a lot. We pissed a lot of collectors off as well. Sure. But we were like, look, we've got to differentiate from Hot Wheels. We've got to get back to what Matchbox is known for from when we were kids, which was realism, and which was a lot of utility vehicles and trucks and stuff. And we need to then look at what the heritage of Matchbox is and do that stuff, because that stuff was cool. Yeah. And at the time, and this is probably quite a big point, actually, it ties into my whole career with Mattel, and I'm sure that people like Ryu and Junamai would agree. At the time, Hot Wheels was a very, very American-centric brand. Like, totally. They were they did not have visibility to what was going on in Europe and Japan. And on my visa paperwork, the reason that justified me moving to the States was that I was an international car culture expert, which was bullshit at the time. It meant I read magazines, but that's what they put down. And so we looked at it and we were like, all right, let's look at all the other cool cars in the world that are far more akin to the heritage of Matchbox than Hot Wheels. Yeah. And let's do that. And so we looked at modern cars like the RS6. We looked at vintage cars and classic cars. You know, that's where the E-Type and the Alpha and the 914 and the list goes on. I mean, you know, that's where...
I got to get the E-Type out. You do that. You keep talking while I get the E-Type out.
So, and that was the start of it. And we started talking with... we engaged with the collector community a lot, and we found out what the favorite castings from the classic lines were, and we tried to put a bit of a twist on that, and then we had to bring them in at cost. That's where the chrome interior deal came from, which was polarizing at the time, but I claim to be one of the best innovations from the past 20 years at Mattel. To do a 4-piece car with delicate chrome bumpers and the right amount of paint ops was impossible without doing it that way. And as a result, I think we created some absolutely brilliant models. And of course, look at that, man. What an absolutely pristine, that's a 4-piece casting.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous.
And those wheels as well, they were my idea. I will happily lay a claim to them. Ryu actually designed them, but it was my idea to do it was intended to be kind of part knockoff wire, but part Hallebrand. Like, it would give the impression, whatever car you put it on, it seemed to just work, you know?
That is, I'm glad you reminded me, because you'd mentioned the E-Type and I forgot to get it out. And I think it's cool to talk about these chrome bumpers. They did. I mean, it's funny. and I'm generalizing here, but from a collector perspective, the Matchbox collectors, especially those old school guys, they know a lot. They're very passionate, but they are finicky, and they will let you know.
Oh yeah.
Hot Wheels collectors do too, but Matchbox kind of in a different way. And there was some, oh, why are we doing a chrome interior? And then I just said, well, just look at the front of that and just know that a $1 car with 4 pieces in it has this brake on the front and the back, and then the Alpha, same thing. It's insane.
Yeah,
how pretty that is.
Years later, Hot Wheels started doing it, and
yeah,
and it was totally like it was because we took the gamble, because it allowed us to then. I mean, if you turn that back around to the front and look at the tampo print on the front, like we couldn't have done that tampo if we hadn't done the bumpers that way, right? So it allowed. I was willing to sacrifice the chrome interior, and to be perfectly honest, there were so many absolutely classic toy cars from the 60s and 70s that had chrome interiors that people regard as greats. So I was like, yeah, it's all part of the heritage, man. Like that, that chrome, and for the customizers, they can pop it apart and they can paint the interior. Who cares? And if we do it, and if we do a super fast version or a collector version, then it's easy enough to do a paint up on the interior.
Right.
So I'm you'll never convince me otherwise. I'm very proud of that. That was a true.
I love it. These models, and we'll talk about the Alpha here in a second. I've always thought like that this, that these, and I know a lot of people that, that's why we call it the golden age, and there were just so many cool classic castings, even the modern castings that you were doing at the time. I mean, really, from, like I said, Porsches and Bentleys, Audi R8s, that kind of stuff, all the way to the classic stuff. This is another one I think that's kind of indicative of what you guys were doing, is the Austin minivan, which is funny. We've seen Hot Wheels do a lot of these now. We've seen Hot Wheels do the Giulia. We've seen them do the minivan. We've seen them do the RS6, just a more modern version. They just did the E-Type. So it's funny how all of that kind of comes around, and you can see them that they've followed that worldwide kind of impact that Matchbox was doing.
It was
back
hilarious.
in the day.
There was a point, and June will probably disagree with me on this and kick my ass, but there was a point, like every time we did a cool car, they did their version of it. Like the VW Thing was the one. I was like, what? We just did a VW Thing? Oh, damn right. There's June. Damn right.
There he is.
But the fact of it was that we started doing all these really rad like Euro classics, and we stuck with our guns. We didn't customize them. We did them as absolute classics, as the best replica we could do for $1. And in fact, Matchbox at the time, we had to do them cheaper than Hot Wheels because we didn't have the volume to bring the cost down. But I think that they influenced the whole. That was the beginning of pushing Hot Wheels from outside, in effect, to start thinking with a more kind of a more global view of car culture. And it was all good. I mean, I don't care. I eventually ended up running a whole lot of them. So it was cool.
All good. Yeah, and nerds like me were like, hey, with both these brands, like as long as we're getting them, we're happy. But I like I said, I have such a soft spot, whether it's nostalgic or not. I have such a soft spot for these cars from this era because it was so much fun to go to the pegs and like, oh, what's next? And I've got to pull Rio aside one of these days and talk to him about some of his designs. June's here. I think it's great that June's on, and I'm not gonna in any way, shape, or form speak for June, but maybe we'll have to have June come in and speak about all the other times, past that. And, he's obviously responsible for his fair share of global iconic cars. So
I mean, I think that's the important thing, right? Like I was very privileged to first with the little Matchbox crew, and specifically with Rio Asada. I was very privileged to work with I brought the Matchbox team was very international, right?
Yeah.
The leaders were British. The lead marketing guy was German. We had Ryu from Japan. The lead like innovator toy guy, Maurizio. He was from Mexico. We had Louise, the marketing manager, was Japanese. I'm forgetting, and I'll probably piss somebody else off if he was watching. Like, we had such an international team that's really, I think, what set the brand apart in those early years. And because of that, we saw massive growth. We rebuilt that brand to be a really quite a big toy brand.
Yeah.
And then the Hot Wheels management certainly took notice. But then we also had, you know, I wasn't responsible for employing June, but I had the privilege of leading him. And oh, shut up, June. Like, your time comes, sunshine. You know, there was a whole bunch of those guys, like a young generation of Hot Wheels designers who I like to think I got the chance to empower to bring their flavor to it. And of course, like I'm an absolute car freak. I'm not a suit. I'm sitting there where I work. Right. This is my. I'll just give you a look. Hang on a second.
Yeah, let's see this. I want to see this.
This is my office. This is where, at the moment, I spend most of my days. I mean, obviously, I have an office, but like, this is where I'm happiest. And the team that we got to put together over the course of kind of 10 years was a team that we didn't push the old guys out, because we had some brilliant guys, and by old guys, I mean like the legends, you know. Larry retired, but we still had like Mark Jones and Phil Reelman, and they were part of the gang. Yeah. But we managed to build a team that had respect for these younger guns coming in, who were bringing knowledge of European culture, Japanese culture. You know, literally the week I left, I think I was banging on at them saying, we need more Porsches. Like, get more Porsches. And then I left. And, and sure enough, they went Porsche crazy. Yeah. But, you know, what the brand's become, and a big part of that, we did so much more with that as well, in terms of associations with people and brands, and actually just doing the whole Hot Wheels for Real thing. You know, we turned that brand on its head. And going back to Matchbox, I personally think that the work that we did with Matchbox in those early years of turning Matchbox around allowed me to then move up and do the same for Hot Wheels.
Yeah. I would love, I mean, that's